Dawson's Rambles.
Hey YouTube, Dawson Ryder here with some pretty significant Power Rangers news that broke yesterday on Saturday. This is coming up on a Sunday because I filmed yesterday's review about the strike in advance because I knew I wouldn't be around. And of course, some major news breaks. And that news being that the Power Rangers Lightning Collection, according to Lightning Figure PR, will be taking at least a hiatus for the year of 2024, which is pretty significant news, and honestly not something I was expecting. As we know, we're about to wind down with Cosmic Fury in the 30th anniversary, and it was, presumed that there would be a hiatus even before the strike, as they keep saying behind the scenes that they're working on the reboot. But, that's, I guess, probably uncertain. It still always has been. I'll address that in a minute. But they have been saying they've been working on it, and that's what their official party line is or whatever every time they talk about it. But even before the strike, it looked like we would be in for a year hiatus, at least before, the end of Cosmic Fury and the beginning of anything new. And then obviously now, as mentioned, we have the writer strike and the actor strike that I did a video about yesterday, which is going to push the production and release dates of everything, not just Power Rangers related stuff. But of course, again, setting aside the strike, I knew that there was going to be probably a hiatus period in regards to a main type of show happening. But during that time, I honestly assumed there would be kind of merchandise around just to sort of keep the brand up. We know that as of this moment, we will still have the comics because they did just recently announce the Darkest Day event, which is supposed to go over a year. And that's starting within the next, I think, 3 to 5 issues. I can't remember the number. I think it's like 113 or something, but I can't remember the issue we're on. But it's starting fairly soon-ish. So the comics will take us at least through a year. I can't say for certain what the future will be for that. This is a pretty significant event we're going into, so I don't know if maybe they're intending that to be a finale or a possible finale for the Boom Comics for now, given everything else that's happening. Maybe that's the case. Maybe it'll be a wait-and-see thing, where if the comics still perform decently enough to justify their existence, they'll continue after that, which is certainly what I hope, because in regards to storytelling, I'd honestly be happy just getting the comics and that's it. But we'll have to see in that regard. But my point of bringing that up is that I assumed in the quiet period we were in for, we would have the comics and likely the Lightning Collection in some form. I was kind of unsure about the main line, what we consider the main line, because obviously once Cosmic Fury is over, there's no real reason or content for a main line. I've speculated previously maybe they would do something like an mmpr throwback line or something, but now it's all but certain there won't be any sort of basic line on shelves doing basically mmpr 2010 or anything like that. So it feels like for the most part 95% of Power Rangers merchandise will also be on a hiatus. If the Lightning Collection disappears, presumably that includes stuff like Zap and the helmets and stuff. And then again, the main line likely won't be there. We'll probably still get stuff every now and then, like third-party statues or, the 3-0 figures or whatever, posters or shirts and stuff like that. I'm sure can't completely evaporate. I'm sure that'll be around. But it looks to be an even quieter period than I was expecting if that's happening, which doesn't make an entire lack of sense, and yet it still surprises me to a degree. I feel like these videos are so tough to do, because I feel like I come off, or at least people like to make it seem like I come off like a total Hasbro apologist, and that's not what I'm trying to be, but I feel like, much like with modern criticism of media, it's an all or nothing mentality when it comes to talking about something, when it comes to fandoms. It's either this show is the devil, it's the worst thing that's ever been made, or it's our savior. It's the same thing with companies. Either Hasbro is the enemy of everything, or they're our savior. And there's no middle ground to appreciate any positives and negatives at the same time. I don't think this looks good. This is an unfortunately dark period for Power Rangers after the 30th anniversary and stuff like that. But also, it's kind of understandable, just based on the way things are going. I'm going to do a different video talking more about Hasbro's handling of the brand thus far. I actually have another video coming out later that's planned for later this weekend, where I rank the eras, and that's funnily enough recorded before this. But where I talk more about some of the decisions Hasbro has made and stuff like that. And I certainly don't think there's been some missteps, or there hasn't been missteps. There has absolutely been missteps, but I also think there's been some pretty significant things that happened that they're kind of reacting to, such as the pandemic, as I mentioned in yesterday's video, that are sort of out of their control. Obviously how they respond to it is in their control, but I think it's kind of a perfect storm of some legitimately bad decisions, but also some things that have happened that I think are kind of unforeseen, that had a negative effect on them. And I think people I'm not saying to cut them slack and say like, oh, just forgive them for everything, but it's like, just have some common sense and some basic human decency about it, I guess. But in regards to the Lightning Collection, like I said, this is surprising. Lightning Collection has obviously been not in the best spot as of late with, the Lightning Collection has gotten a lot of criticisms over, I mean, anything gets a lot of criticisms. I can't think of anything nowadays that fans don't just nitpick apart like a bunch of brats. But Lightning Collection has faced criticism all throughout its run, but in the recent years, it's had some significant, drawbacks with more and more QC issues. That's been something that's been prevalent since the beginning, QC issues. But at the beginning, it was kind of more like par for the course type of stuff that you would see in their other lines, which was like paint nicks and stuff. And it was like, not that it was excusable, but it wasn't outside the realm of what you were used to seeing. Like, I remember even on some of the early reviews, people would be like, oh yeah, I collect so-and-so for Hasbro or Transformers. Like, this is pretty much normal. Again, not saying that they shouldn't try to fix it, but it wasn't like Power Rangers was the exception. It was kind of going along with the status quo. But for the most part, there was some bright spots that I think weren't given credit for, but it definitely had a downward spiral, especially more recently when they changed factories. That infamous wave that we all got that I did multiple videos about where I broke 2 Izzy figures, and I did not go for thirds. I did get a second Coda figure after mine broke, and thankfully it was fine, but there was a noticeable difference in the quality. There was a lot more QC issues, a lot more varied QC issues. They were very different QC issues that would happen. There was a lot of inconsistencies in terms of like visors or badges or whatever that wouldn't match. It's been a ton of different problems for it. It's only gotten worse recently with a lot of backlash surrounding it. I don't know exactly what the sales figures are like, but they're probably not the greatest. I was actually thinking about this the other day. I was at Target and I saw the Blue Centurion, which is actually one of the best figures they've released, not only recently, but I think in the franchise's run. I mean, the Lightning Collection's run, rather. And that's already on clearance at Target, which seems crazy soon. There's been a couple figures like the monsters, which makes sense. I'm like, dude, no casuals care about the monsters, to be honest. But I guess nobody cares about the Blue Centurion either, in terms of like the casuals. But still, that's just surprising to see something like that, even though it's, on the pricier end, go on clearance so soon. I feel like that's much more of a, put on sale than go on clearance type of thing before you go to that. But things like haven't been great. And I was hoping that they were going to just take, stock of everything and retool. And there have been some slight improvements in certain waves. Like I think the recent one with Dr. O and Mesogog was pretty solid, but it hasn't been perfect. But like all of this stuff I talked about in past videos was kind of like bumps in the road. As it's funny now because I've said like this shouldn't be the end of the franchise. And I still don't think it is. I'll talk about that more in tomorrow's video. But all kinds of toy companies will have bumps in the road. I'm like, this needn't be more than a bump in the road, which I still feel like that. I still feel like this is not good news for now. But I think in the grand scheme of the lifetime of the franchise, I don't think it's killing the franchise. But it's certainly a negative beat that I was not expecting. And I have mixed feelings on it. On the one hand, I really feel like the reason this is happening and the reason a lot of things are happening is they're just not entirely sure the direction they want to move in. I think they sort of know their goals, but I don't think they know how to get there. And I think that also it's not as much of a priority, and since things aren't financially great for anybody in a lot of ways right now, they're probably thinking we're going to prioritize the things that are more important to us, such as Star Wars and Transformers, which they own. They own the rights to distribute Star Wars, but they own Transformers. And that makes sense. Again, it's like, as fans, we think that like they should be dedicating it to Power Rangers and us fans. I'm like, well, but yeah, those brands are bigger. If it were me, I would prioritize them too. So it's probably a combination of them prioritizing that and then just being like, we just don't have the bandwidth to deal with Power Rangers like right now. We need to take a beat and reassess, which I think is ultimately a good idea. They could surprise us. I'm always leave room for surprises. I'm always room. I like how that sentence flipped off of that. I'm always room. Dawson, 2023. You're tearing me apart, Lisa! Anyway. What was I even talking about just then? Oh yes, I always leave room to be surprised because Hasbro buying the brand in general was a huge surprise I wasn't expecting. So who knows? Maybe even in the next week Hasbro will sell the brand. But I just think it's going to be one of those cases where it's just going to be quietly shelved for a bit because they never got a chance to really put their own stamp on it in regards to the franchise. As far as the Lightning Collection, of course one of the biggest disappointments for people is going to be that for now they're not going to complete a lot of teams, which I objectively definitely understand. And while I think it was cool to get complete teams for the Lightning Collection in one of the best, most accurate looking PR figure sculpts, this was never personally something that I was concerned about. Like, not in terms of like I wasn't concerned they were going to stop, but when they stopped, I didn't really care about getting complete teams because I've just kind of always dealt with that. I've collected so many different lines of figures for PR, some of which completed, some of which didn't, or completed teams, and so I was never putting all my hopes on having a complete collection of every team. You know, as far as like my mind is concerned, I have the complete core team of all the basic figures up to this point, except for Cosmic Fury, which doesn't exist as of this moment, and that's kind of fine enough for me, and everything is just bonus. But that definitely kind of sucks for a lot of people. You know, I'm glad we're getting, you know, over the course of its lifetime that we've gotten some really niche figures I never would have expected, both from the comics or stuff like A-Squad. I think that there was some imbalance issues to be sure, but this definitely sucks, and I can't say for certain that when and if it comes back, it'll be the Lightning Collection again, or it'll be a rebranding. You know, I think when they come back, it will probably be retooled, so even if it's the Lightning Collection again, it might not exactly fit in with what you have. Like, they might start from one again, and they might look slightly different, so they're not going to fit in perfectly, so either way, I think that's probably an overall negative. But yeah, very surprising news, to be sure. Again, I'm not surprised about the brand hiatus, but I am about the toy hiatus. I expected it to be a quieter period. Like, I assumed if, like, we got Lightning Collection and other stuff, it would be much more minimal compared to what we're used to. But I think that they would keep it around to keep things afloat. But I think there might be a reason why they're doing that. But I will save that. I'm going to gather my thoughts and do a video for tomorrow just talking more about the franchise. But this, I just wanted to let you know some of my early thoughts about this and let you know that the Lightning Collection, I guess, will be taking a hiatus. Now, that we still have the rest of this year where we will be releasing, I'm sure, the stuff we already know about, some stuff we probably don't know about, and I'm sure you'll still see some leftover odds and ends on the shelves in 2024. But it seems like they won't be producing for at least that year. But let me know what you guys think of the situation in the comments as always. Until next time, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and climb the steps and ring that bell so you get notifications for my videos. Dawson Ryder, signing out.